Hello there. Who's ready to improve their security posture? Show of hands. All right, whoa, all of you.
That's quite a bit of hands up. Who's ready to simplify the administration of their identities? Oh, there's got to be more hands. Come on, two hands up.
And who's ready to save some time and effort simplifying this access while improving the security posture? And saving time is more money, right? Ready? All right. So I am Harvinder Nagpal, also go by Harvey. I am an identity specialist on workforce identity services, which are IAM, AWS IAM Identity Center, Access Analyzer, IAM Roles Anywhere, and Managed Active Directory. I am here as a go-to-market specialist on workforce identity services. Prior to AWS, I have 15 plus years of experience in identity access management space. And I've seen that journey from on-prem IAM to SaaS-based and cloud adoption. And I'm joined here by Jonathan.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Van Kim. I'm a senior solutions architect. I specialize in security and identity. I've been with AWS now for about 8 years. Prior to becoming an SA at AWS, I was in professional services with AWS as well. And I spent a lot of time doing security and identity during those 8 years.
Thanks, Jonathan. So over here, we are going to talk about what is IAM Identity Center. How can we simplify access management of AWS services and using IAM Identity Center? And then we'll take the conversation beyond on one of the key tenets that we have is meeting customers where they are. And we'll talk about some of the Active Directory services and what AWS has to offer. But we're going to start with, at a broader level, what are the challenges which are being faced by our customers across the different verticals and in different sectors. We'll make it a very use case-centric approach on how we have seen, what we have heard, how customers are using IAM Identity Center, what we want them to use it for, and then we'll make it a very persona-based, use case-based approach, and that's how we'll conduct it. Okay? Diving deep into it, right? So if I'll get your attention on the left side of your screen, which is what are customers really using, right? Like they are on their accelerated cloud journey. Rarely nowadays we hear if anyone is just stuck on-prem, right? They are on the different levels of cloud journey in there. And why do they use this? So they are adopting cloud for accelerated innovation, right? So they want to innovate faster. They want to be agile. They want to have that ephemeral infrastructure so that they can quickly deploy services, test it out, build their applications, and if needed, remove it, right? But all of that agility, they want to improve it with the security. At the end of the day, security, compliance, information security posture is the key tenet in there. They want to make it as frictionless as possible for their end users. As they go about with their cloud journey, right, there are a lot of opportunities that comes up. And with those opportunities also, there are challenges. It becomes a teamwork when all these different personas and different people or teams, as they wear different hats in the enterprises, they do different jobs in there. The enterprise teams itself have evolved, right? And there are new roles and new capabilities, new roles and responsibilities that these enterprise users are adopting. So it presents its own opportunities, its own challenges. So let's take a look at what are these different personas that we are looking at, right? Architects. So architect, whether in your organization that architect is a cloud security architect. In your organization, that architect is just a security architect. In another organization, the architect is enterprise architect wearing multiple hats. But at the end of the day, these architects are defining those strategic visions, right? Where they want to take the organization to from a technology and architecture standpoint. And they are trying to strike a balance. They are trying to strike a balance much more strategically on how to simplify the business processes, make it easier, again, for their end users, business users, right? While aligning to enterprise architecture technology landscape. Technology landscape is changing, right? So they want to align to the newer standards. So the cloud security architect has to balance between both of these to say how can they optimize and come up with the solution or a strategy that can not only simplify improve the security architecture, or security posture, but also simplify the business processes and end user for the end users. The other persona is engineers. So engineers, like in your organization, engineers may be your DevOps engineers. The whole concept of shift-left-based development methodology is getting adopted more and more. In your organization, this engineer may be an application developer. But the point is, they are also trying to strike a balance between these conflicting priorities. They are trying to balance out between, should I build this script? Should I build this application? Or should I just buy it, right? Or if I want to build it, are there APIs available? Now, with this whole cloud adoption, it's all an API-first strategy. So are the APIs available? Are the APIs secure enough that I can use? The secure development practices are getting much, much more adopted from the customers in there. That's what we hear in there. And the third persona, which we all love, is the operations guys, right? Administrators. We all love them. Who doesn't want them? And they are also trying to strike a balance. Should I centralize the access, or should I delegate it out to the business units, business owners, right? With the guardrails and the guide rails, so that there is no, there is no compromise on the security side. So they are trying to also balance out this lockdown access versus delegated access, right? And that's all these personas with all these different priorities they are trying to balance it out to provide the best solution for their enterprise users. So who are these enterprise users, right? Who are these enterprise users? Whether they are your end users, your business users, the application teams, right? The application owners and the team members around it, or the IT managers, the IT team people, architects, engineers. And what are they trying to do? They are trying to perform these operations, right, to simplify the cloud adoption, right? Accelerate the cloud adoption. A lot of our customers have started on this journey of multi-cloud, multi-account strategy, right, as you would have heard of. So multi-account adoption is increasing even more. Customers are using individual AWS accounts for not only one application by application purpose, but also from application team by application team purpose, but also from a dev, test, prod standpoint. So there's lots of increase of multi-account adoption strategy. And what do they want? They want productivity. Not only they want productivity at scale. It's all about driving cloud adoption at scale, right, in there. So where does this identity center come in? And that's where we as AWS have this identity center. By the way, if you did not know, we rebranded AWS SSO that you would have heard earlier before during Reinforce earlier this year in July timeframe. We rebranded it to IAM Identity Center to be more aligned to what it can really do. It can go beyond just single sign-on capabilities, but also provide much more inclusive access management. So Identity Center becomes the front door for these workforce users, these enterprise users, these business users, these end users who are adopting this multi-account strategy and trying to simplify access. That's what this IAM Identity Center lets you get to. So how does it basically work, right? So IAM Identity Center, so if you look at it on your left side, right? So as you have AWS organization, which becomes a more overarching service to let you have adopt multi-account strategy. So you have a management account associated with AWS organization. So IAM Identity Center integrates with organization and lives in the management account and allows you to manage access for multiple organization units and multiple accounts across this organization. So then the question becomes is IAM Identity Center, am I going to be allowing my delegated admins or what have you to the management account? No, not necessary. Jonathan is going to talk about it a little later. But the point is, it helps you in adopting multi-account strategy, simplifying access management at scale in there. So what does Identity Center, how does it really work? So if you look at it on the right side, then a lot of customers, they already have their own either some sort of identity store or identity provider, whether you may be using Okta, you may be using Azure AD, you may be using Ping. For that matter, you may be using Active Directory as your identity store, right? So all of these identity providers, what IAM Identity Center lets you is integrate with those identity providers, so you do not have to spin it up. There is no constraint. Like our tenant on meeting customers where they are, we let you integrate your identity provider, your existing identity provider into IAM Identity Center so that you can synchronize those identities from those IDPs to Identity Center so that those identities can authenticate across applications and multiple accounts. Now these applications could be a SAML 2.0 based application, custom application, or it could be a standard SaaS provided application, right? So that the end users through their IDP can access single sign-on into these applications. But not only that, it can help you centralize management of that access. So there is no more a need of managing access at individual IAM level, no more need of federating these identity providers and setting up the federation at individual IAM and account level. You can centralize all of this through IAM Identity Center. And it lets you do a multi-account permission management so that it simplifies it. Again, one stop to manage these permissions at scale as you get into the multi-account adoption strategy. After this, I'm going to invite Jonathan to talk about different use cases that we have heard from customers, how they are using it, what they plan to use it, and how they are adopting IAM Identity Center. Jonathan?
Thank you, Harvey. All right, let's go into, so we're going to dive into some more personas. So Harvey's already talked about operations, talked about architects, and talked about engineers. I myself have spent quite a number of years in operations. Just out of curiosity, how many folks here are operations folks? There's going to be a lot of love in this presentation for them because there's quite a few slides really geared for them. So one of the things that we want to talk about here is this first slide here is for operations team. And the operations teams is the team that interacts with your workforce users. These workforce users are your customers. These are the folks that you talk to on a regular basis, and you listen to them. So in AWS, inside Identity Center, the goal is to make it user-friendly. As Harvey mentioned, this is the front door for AWS and applications. This is preferred front door. There are other ways to get into AWS, of course, but this is the preferred front door to get into AWS accounts and the preferred front door if you have access, if you want to give your users access to things like Box or Office 365 or Salesforce. There are over 27 pages. There's hundreds of pre-configured applications similar to Box and Salesforce and Office 365 where we've already pre-configured the application and all you have to do is set it up on your end. Now, what if you have an application that you built on your own or is not part of that list of pre-configured applications? We also provide you a wizard that you can go through and we guide you through the setup and being able to set up your own SAML-based application. So overall, this is going to be a single sign-on experience for your workforce identities. And it's very beneficial to your operations team, giving them a good user experience. Now, let's go a little bit more. As I said, there's a lot of love for operations here. So here's the second one. Here, we're simplifying administration for operations. Prior to using Identity Center, you had all your administration done at an account level. Here, we now use Identity Center as the central point for identity management. Here, you can manage your users, your groups, as well as your permission sets, or in this case, your authorizations. Now, this Identity Center actually runs out of the management account, which is the top level account inside an AWS organizations. Having said that, our customers and our customers have told us, and security best practices have asked us to create a feature which allows you to do delegated admin. And with delegated admin, all you have to do is go into Identity Center, select your favorite AWS account, put the number in there, and it will automatically provision. It will enable administrative access, a subset of administrative functions to that account. So going forward, after you've done that step, your administrators, your operators, all they have to do is log into that new account and be able to do a subset of functions such as user management and permission management. This allows you to not have to have as much activity in the management account, and it provides you a more secure and safe environments as service control policies and other guardrails will take effect. We are still on operations. So, having been in operations for quite a number of years myself, what keeps me up in the middle of the night? And some of the things that keeps me up in the middle of the night is applications and services that are not as resilient. So in this case, Identity Center is highly available and very resilient. It's deployed across multiple availability zones, and which are well connected with low latency, high speed networks that are redundant across these availability zones. So therefore, these are architected in such a way that Identity Center will be very highly resistant, and something that from an operations standpoint, you can rest assured and be able, at least one aspect of this service is that it is not likely to go down. We're still on operations. Like I said, there's quite a few slides here that's going to be on operations. And this one is going to be more around the administration of permission sets. So there's two types of permission sets inside Identity Center. Now, let's just to quickly define what a permission set is. A permission set is all it is a collection of IAM policies. You can have inline policies, managed policies, customer manager policy. These are just a collection of policies that we just bundle together, and we call it a permission set. A permission set can be predefined, so it's kind of like administrator role, view-only access, security audit role, or a security audit permission set. These are all made and built by AWS, and you're free to use this on your own. And the second type is custom permission set. Here you get to you could use policies that are made by AWS, so like the standard AWS managed policies, such as the administrator or S3 full access. You can also use inline policies, and two new types of policies have been introduced earlier this year. I believe it's right around reinforce. The first one is customer managed policies, and the second one is permission boundaries. And what this means is now you can take policies that you already created and are probably already using today inside your accounts, and you can use those to provision a permission set, and then use that permission set to provision an AWS Identity Center role. So what's great about this is you don't have to recreate those permissions inside as a permission set. Rather, you just need to know the IAM policy name and be able to reuse those and be able to save yourself a lot of administrative overhead. So let's kind of dive in a little bit more into how permission sets works. So here's a diagram. This is on the far left. Let's go there. We have Identity Center. We have users and groups. Could be a local store. Those could be users or groups that come from an external IDP. We also have assignment. Now, an assignment inside Identity Center is essentially a user or group, an account number, and a permission set. And when you use all three of those things put together, that's how you provision an Identity Center managed role. So let's go into more about the permission set itself. As I mentioned earlier, a permission set is a collection of IAM policies. They could be an AWS managed policy, which we have in the middle. And the reason why it's in the middle is because we own those policies. We update those policies, but you get to use them. Second way is to use inline policy. The third and fourth way is to use customer managed policies and permission boundaries. So if you look to the far right, you see here you have your organization, which is the management account. You have OUs, and you have a bunch of accounts inside. And as you can see, we zoomed into one of those accounts. And the reason why this is really important is because this is the mental model that you want to have in your head when you're thinking about how this all works. So AWS managed policies are out in the ether because we manage those. But those policies that you see on the right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, those customer managed policies are the policies that you've created and exist in your account. Same thing with permission boundary policies, IKL. Those all belong to you. You created those inside your account. So let's go ahead and try this out. So in this example, I'm going to take X and Y. Those are policies that AWS has provided me. I'm going to take a customer managed policy, ADG, and the permission boundary I. Now, I'm going to use that as an assignment. I've created that as a permission set. I'm going to use that as an assignment with a user or group, account number, and a permission set. And as you can see in the middle, that inside that account, we've created an Identity Center managed role. This role exists inside the account. These roles are immutable, at least for the purposes of those who are existing account, they're managed. You cannot alter them. You cannot delete them. And they are fully controlled by Identity Center. So I'm going to step back just a little bit. I want to really show the differences and the simplification that Identity Center is showcasing here. So let's go into go into the standard, or I guess what most of us are using today, or a lot of customers are using today, which is just IAM-based federation, AWS IAM Federation. So you have users, you have workforce users, you have an identity provider. They log into your identity provider, and then they're presented with an account, or two or three. They're presented with a list of accounts, and they select account number 1. And what happens is, once they select the account they've logged in, you have SAML federation, and in which case we're now going to present them with a list of roles that they can select. So you have a role, and you have that role, therefore it has permissions. And if you want to give that user more access, or if they have access to another account, we do the same thing, and so forth until we get to account N, which could be any number of accounts. In this model, you can support hundreds of thousands of accounts. Now, if you notice in this model right here, you have federations set up, but it's per account basis. Every account has its own dedicated federation set up. Also, if you notice in this model, every account has its own roles and permissions. It's all distributed out. Authorization is stored in the accounts themselves. Now, there are ways in which over the years we have helped customers manage all these, and we can do that through various levels of automation. And one of the ways to do that is through CloudFormation stack sets. So now let's contrast that and take a look at how we do it with Identity Center. So, same thing. Workforce users, identity provider, nothing's changed. They log in, and they want to say, I want to go to account 1. Maybe they want to go to account 2, account 3, and you now have account N again. And there's an infinite, maybe not infinite, but a large number of accounts we support today. I've been with customers who I've had conversations with. They're in the thousands of accounts going in this model. And in order for them to support or help them support this model, they have been using Identity Center. Now, what is really good about this is that you've now centralized all your roles and permissions into Identity Center. It runs out of one account now. Instead of having to reach out to every account, you can either log into each account and go through the console and make changes to those permissions, or you can use some level of automation to reach into those accounts and make those changes. But with Identity Center, we've taken all that work for you. We've taken that work and automated it for you. So take a look at this. If you look at the Identity Center, using that red box in the middle, everything to the right, those arrows, those are all federations that we automatically do for you. And anything over to the right of that, we also provision roles and permissions for you as well. So really, from the left side of the model, left side of the Identity Center, you just have to worry about, from a central location, managing users and managing permissions. And of course, there's and if you have your own identity provider, managing your own identity provider. Now, Identity Center does come with some features that don't exist anywhere else, and there's exclusiveness in one of those features. And one of these features, which I really like a lot and I use quite a bit, is the integration with the CLI. And we call it, you do have to upgrade your CLI if you're in the previous version, but CLI v2 is what works and integrates with Identity Center. What's great about this is that you can now log into Identity Center through the command line, and it'll come back, and you'll have your own, you'll be authenticated, and you'll have a role, and from that you can also get the access keys and secret keys if you should wish. You don't have to do it, but you can do that if you need those keys. But otherwise, if you're logged in through the CLI, you can just start typing commands, AWS space S3-LS to list all your S3 buckets. Now, something you may or may not be aware of, we also updated our IAM best practices right around Reinforce as well. And I encourage you to go take a look at that because it's changed quite a bit. And one of the things that has changed in the IAM best practices is that Identity Center is now part of the best practices now. So please go take a look at that. It's changed a lot since the previous version. Oh, and I forgot, permission sets are right in the middle. One more animation. So let's go dive into a little bit on the user experience. There's obviously two types of user experience. The first one the first one we're going to talk about right here is how you do temporary credentials, and then the second one's going to be just the console login. So in IAM Federation, this is how you would do temporary credentials. You have a workforce, log into the identity provider, they select an account, and you have your usual workflow. And this is where it gets a little weird. You now have to, in order to get those credentials, you do have to run a custom script to actually screen scrape those credentials out. And those are IDP dependent, they could possibly change, and it could be unreliable. So you now have a custom script that you maintain in order for your customers to be able to get those credentials. So from an operations standpoint, or in this case, sorry, this is an engineer standpoint. This is your builder, your application engineer, your DevOps, who want to get these credentials so they could do something. Maybe run a script on their laptop, build a new script for something that they're testing. But they have to do this in order to get those credentials. So let's look at it from the Identity Center standpoint. We've streamlined this process, and honestly, the diagram looks a little bit more complicated, but the process is a lot more streamlined and a much better user experience for the end users. So we still need workforce users in order for this to work, to start off with. And as I mentioned, you need CLI v2 for this to work as well, and you still need a web browser. So these workforce users are going to log in to your identity provider. From the identity provider, you're going to have to pick an account. Here's where something you may be familiar with. We're going to do a device authorization. How many folks are log into their favorite streaming app on their TVs, and they get presented with these 6 to 8 character digits on the TV, and it says go to your web browser and type this in. There's quite a few. So this is the same workflow that we're doing too, except we're doing it for the CLI v2. And I'll show you the experience here in a little bit. So you do the device authorization, and it redirects you to a web browser. If you do this on a terminal that doesn't have a web browser, all it says is to go to a specific URL, type that URL in an existing web browser, such as on a different laptop or workstation, and then type in the login and go ahead and type in the 8-digit code. And in return, you get access. We do a redirect underneath, and your CLI v2 will now be authenticated and authorized, and you'll get to pick an IAM role to log in with. And from there, you can also grab your access keys and secret keys, which I'll show you here in a little bit. And then eventually, you now have access to an account. So here's the key thing about Identity Center is the capability of doing automation now. Identity Center, its APIs have been developed and much more robust now. So you have two options. You could either log into the console in the central account and be able to do your administration, or you can go through the APIs and create your own workflows, your own scripts, your own reporting, anything that will make your job as an engineer much faster, much easier. And of course, I already mentioned earlier, you can log in and get those credentials from using CLI v2 instead of having to use any type of screen scraping or using static credentials such as IAM users. This is the preferred way for humans to get access to temporary credentials. So, as I mentioned already, this is a video here. I'm going to start it up. And this is the CLI login process. So you're going to type in AWS configure SSO. There it goes. So as you were going through this process, I'm going to talk about a little bit like how as Harvey already mentioned, we rebranded from AWS SSO. However, things in the back end, such as CLIs that rely on scripts, the 3 letters SSO still exist. And for backwards compatibility, we're still going to use SSO as part of the CLI. So, yes, in this video, you can see I did that. You can see I now have 2 roles that you can choose from. I'm going to log into US East 1. I pick the administrator access, and I'm giving my profile a name. So, next thing I'm going to do, from this point on, you're free to go start using your AWS again, AWS S3, LS, or whatever you want to do. But I'm showing you right here how to get your access keys and secret keys, because it's not written in the local file. But here, I'm showing you a JSON file where the access token is located. And we're going to use a command to use a command. It's called get role credentials. And using this access token, you can get your secret access keys and secret keys. You don't have to use these access and secret keys, but if you have a situation, I've had a lot of customers ask me about this, so I thought it was a really good idea to put this video up so to help you to find those keys and be able to use it in your situation. So you need a role name, you need an account ID, and you need that access token. So as you see, I'm typing this all out. I'm using my role as administrator access. I grab the account ID from the top. This is, by the way, can be all automated. You don't have to, I'm showing you the manual way to do this so that you can write your own scripts and make it work in your situation. Again, you don't need these keys right out, if you're just using the CLI. It's only if you really need them. And I'm about to go ahead and grab that really, really long access token. Paste that in, and we're going to get a result here of role credentials. Now you're going to see I have the access key ID, and I have the access key right underneath. For those who are taking pictures, I took this video a long time ago. These keys are not valid, just so you know. So let's go through the console instead. So this is the login process for the console. So you're going to get, when you log into Identity Center, you're going to use a specific URL that Identity Center is going to give you. You can customize that URL to sort of fit what you're looking for. So it's not the non-custom URL starts with a D dash with a bunch of numbers and letters, but you can change that D dash part to something that makes more sense for you. So kicking this off. You can see I used reinvent2020.awsapps.com/start. And as you can see right here, here's what the users are presented with. You have accounts. Here's a little applet for all your AWS accounts. You have a little applet for QuickSight, Box, and Office 365. And the list can keep going for all the apps that you want to present to your users. You can also change, and I did this on purpose here. As you can see, I got dropped into code commit. You can change the relay state so that when your user first logs in, you can have them land on whatever page you want. And so I just chose code commit because in this case, the persona is a developer. I'm going through I've logged into the Identity Center console, and I just wanted to show you what the look and feel of it looks like. You can see that I have users in here, I have groups, and you can now see the AWS accounts inside the organization. So I have 2 accounts in here. And then the last one I wanted to show you, again, back to this as being user-friendly. Here are the 4 apps that I've pre-configured. I have Salesforce, Box, Office 365, and Amazon QuickSight. So 27 pages, at least at the time I made this video, there's 27 pages of pre-configured applications out there. And I'm just going through a few of them just to show you that. And above, there's actually the ability for you to go through the wizard and be able to add your own custom SAML application. So here I'm showing you, I'm logging into QuickSight. I did not have to re-log in. I just logged in once, and now I'm inside QuickSight. And this would apply to all the other applications that you have in place. So now that we're here, now that I've shown you some of the capabilities of Identity Center, let's talk about why an architect would be interested in this. Why would this be a solution that would be useful to your customers? So one of the things that you could first of all, you can use Identity Center as is. It has its own identity store, has its own authentication, it supports multiple MFAs, or you can bring your own identities. And this is where we're giving you the option to meet you in the middle. Identity Center is very, very flexible. We support Ping, we support Okta, we support OneLogin, Microsoft, Azure AD, your own Active Directory. Our goal is to help you bring your own identities if you have them. If not, you're free to use the local identity store and be able to both administer your users and manage your permissions there. The nice thing about Identity Store is that it will happily coexist with IAM. So if you're currently using IAM users or if you're using IAM-based federation, turning on Identity Store has no effect. All that happens now is you have 2 ways to get into AWS, and you can run those in parallel for as long as you like. Now, what I'll be talking about later is that you can run those in parallel and use that as a strategy for migration. And one of the things that's really nice about the Identity Center is that it does have a lot of compliance. It is compliant with a lot of frameworks out there, such as PCI, such as IRAP. One of the things I would encourage you to do, the list is pretty long and it changes all the time, is to go out to our website and go to our compliance page and look up this service. We'll have a check mark or an X, something to denote like whether Identity Center is compliant with that particular framework, and whether it's whether it's not, or when it's going to be available. So let's talk about adoption here. So if this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, is something that I've talked to a lot of customers about. How do we migrate? How do we go from IAM users or going from IAM-based federation to using Identity Center? So there's a few things that if you walk out of this room, there's 3 things that should be something you should be thinking about. The first one is it's very low. It's very low risk. As I mentioned earlier, there's very few things that it will coexist with your current authentication or authorization method. Whatever you have in place, it will still work. There's no interaction between the two out of the gate. So there's very few two-way doors. So this is a very low risk situation for you to enable the service and run it. Even if you don't run it, even if you enable the service and don't actually use it, there's no financial impact. Identity Center is completely free to use. So those 3 things, just bear in mind, provide you capabilities for free. So now it's time to look at what are your migration options. Now there's actually 2.5 ways to do this. The first way is to do a phased approach, crawl, walk, run. And what you're essentially doing is you're going to fire up Identity Center, and you're going to start off with a much small. You're going to start off and do this very safely. So pick some pilot with some non-critical users. Get some feedback. Get them to log with the Identity Center. Set up you're basically going to get them access to AWS in 2 ways, or their apps in 2 ways, and get the feedback from them. How is the migration process working? How do they like Identity Center? Do they like the old way or do they like the new way? By doing this, you're able to verify that they have access with very, very minimal disruption. Because if whatever they wanted to do and it was not working in Identity Center, they can always go back to the original method that did work. Now, at some point in time, you are effectively having 2 authorization models here. So managing 2 is not ideal. So at some point in time, it's best to go ahead and have them, when they've reached their comfort level, go ahead and disable their old access. And if for whatever reason down the road they run into issues, you can always re-enable the old access. And then you keep this process going and going till you've gone through all your users in your organization. So this is very useful if you have a smaller organization, and you have a lot of time to be able to take this slow and be able to work your way through any edge cases that may come up. Now there's the turbocharged way, lift and shift. Now this one's going to go much faster. Now this is going to require you to do a lot more automation. So you're going to automate the policy migration, or you're going to use customer managed policies, the feature that I mentioned earlier. So being able to reuse those policies that was already existing will save you a lot of time in this situation. You will also need to automate the user and access assignments, and then of course you're going to do this in bulk. And of course now you have a bulk amount of users who have both access to both method, and you're going to need to validate that they've been migrated correctly. And at some point in time, you're going to have to disable access to the old one so that all your users are on Identity Center. Now, here's a couple caveats about this. One is that this highly requires this. First of all, it's very fast. It could be a little bit more disruptive because you're doing such a large amount of users. But the key to making this one successful is that you need a very homogeneous authorization model. So you know what your IAM policies look like. They have really good standard name formats. There's very few or no edge cases in your environment. If you fall into those categories, this is a great way to do this. However, this is the 2.5 part. A lot of customers kind of fall in between. And the best way to do this is to start off with a phased approach, start gathering data, what does your authorization landscape look like? do you have a homogeneous environment or do you have a lot of edge cases? And being able to separate those two out and being able to use the phased approach for your edge cases, and then using the turbocharged method for the environment that has a lot of where it's very homogeneous. So a hybrid approach is what I would take a look at in the long run. But definitely start with a phased approach and then start thinking about how you can speed this up. Because at the end of the day, you will have two authorization models, and having two authorization models means you have a little bit more overhead. So now that we've talked about migrations, and like I said, the key thing about doing this migration is going to be that it's low risk, it's going to be virtually no cost, and it's going to be very easy for you. Now that we've gone through the whole migration, it's important to now talk about the identity store. Where are your users going to reside? And so I'm going to hand this back over to Harvey, and he's going to talk about the identity store and some of the services that we offer to help you do this. Harvey?
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. So like you saw, right, different personas working with IAM Identity Center for different use cases, right? And this is all our customer anecdotes, how customers have been using it. So sharing it with you so that you can, if you have not adopted it yet, you have not used it yet, not aware of it yet, you can always try it out, evaluate it, right? And because this is the recommended way forward from an AWS standpoint. Now, continuing on the journey, right? So we spoke about improving the security posture, improving operational efficiencies, right? Saving time, getting some more money. So continuing on thread and AWS tenant of meeting customers where they are. Another thing that we hear from our customers is their Active Directory as an identity store, right? So they over a period of time, they have adopted Active Directory, which has worked well for them so far. They are still on a journey to modernize their IAM and modern cloud directories, but they are still dependent on Active Directory. However, they want to modernize it. They want to do much more accelerated and innovative solutions in there. So what does AWS has to provide to accelerate their journey on their identity store? So AWS has these two services called AD Connector or AWS Managed Active Directory, where between these two services, it lets you continue on your migration journey. And whether it is a lift and shift, you want to just move it over to AWS side, or you want to, in a phased approach, migrate slowly and continue with your journey. So AD Connector. So AD Connector is basically to connect your AWS services to your on-prem Active Directory. And when I say on-prem, it may be running literally on-prem, on the bare metal, or it could be running on some virtual machine or on EC2 compute cloud. The point is, it's a self-managed AD, right? So you can, using AD Connector, you can redirect the authentication services for AWS services for the users to your on-prem AD, self-managed AD. Again, highly available infrastructure on AD Connector side, but that's one option. The other option that's available is AWS Managed AD. You still have Active Directory, right? Customers have Active Directory. They have users, groups inside it. There are some applications that are still relying on that authentication and authorization purposes. But now to make it enable for AWS services and other applications, you can use AWS Managed AD, which is a managed Active Directory. It's Microsoft Active Directory version 2019 is the one that we just launched, which lets you provide those Active Directory services to those applications in there. Again, like I said, real quick debrief that it's a fully managed service that AWS provides, right? And it's all about gaining the operational efficiency, where the operations team can work on enabling the business testing, business use cases, and not have to worry about the mundane tasks of patching or deploying, right, or monitoring those services. Again, on a shared responsibility model, so AWS provides these managed services of deployment, of providing you with, at scale, those domain controllers that's available and patching them, monitoring them. Whereas on the customer side, you are responsible for administering the users, the groups, the GPOs, group policy objects, right, managing the authorization, configuring password policies, or managing trust relationships between AWS Managed AD or on-prem AD. By default, when you subscribe to this service, it spins up 2 domain controllers, and it can scale out to a region. It's available across worldwide regions, including Greater China region, if needed, and highly available service. Key thing is, when you subscribe to this service, it's a single tenant mode. When you are subscribing to this AWS Managed AD, which again is available at a management account level, integrated with AWS organization, so that it is available across your AWS accounts for application integration, it's a single tenant which is deployed for you. There is no sharing of data or the services with the other customers. And the key features on this one, really quick I'll go through is, like I mentioned, it's actually Microsoft Active Directory version 2019. Some customers who are already using it are on the previous version of AD, and that's where we are working with those customers to migrate them over to 2019 version. But it is actual Microsoft AD. Again, used to manage your users, your groups, group policies, password policies, infosec policies. What we just released is the configurable directory settings. A lot of customers, they came back and they said, hey, I want to be able to configure some of the directory settings based on my infosec policies or based on my requirements. So that's another capability we just offered and made it available. And we'll continue to evolve this to enable more and more of these directory settings in there. Trust support. So you can set up a trust, one-way trust, two-way trust between AWS Managed AD and your on-prem AD, so that if you are not ready to migrate the users, the credentials, or groups over to AWS Managed AD, but you still want to leverage the authentication services to AWS native services, you can establish a trust mode in there between AWS Managed AD and Enterprise AD. Like I mentioned, it supports multiple accounts. You set it up once in your organization. It's available across accounts for you. It's a multi-region replication. AWS takes care of your domain controller applications in there. All you do is you enable or disable to say, I want it in this region or not in this region. And it's an AWS managed infrastructure. Who doesn't love that? So 2 models where our customers are using this managed AD. One is in a trust mode, right? So in a resource forest trust mode, where customers from their own on-prem infrastructure side, and again, when I say on-prem, it's a self-managed infrastructure, self-managed Active Directory. They can establish a one-way or a two-way trust with AWS Managed AD. And that presents them with an option to integrate subsequent applications to AWS Managed AD so that they can be on a journey, on a path to deprecate their on-prem AD once the users, groups, and all of their applications and move over to AWS Managed AD. The other mode that customers are using for is just like Jonathan mentioned, lift and shift, right? So it's just migrated over to AWS Cloud. And here you can create users, groups straight up in AWS Managed AD. We have seen a lot of customers, especially when they are in acquisition or divestiture use cases, they want to separate out the infrastructure, separate out the users group, and then let the divested company take it over from there. They use it for a lot of those use cases. Not only that, customers use it as an ephemeral infrastructure, right? You have applications, applications want to test against Active Directory. They want it for like month, 2 month, 3 month, 6 month period. After that, they don't need it. They leverage AWS Managed AD, spin it up, load the users group, let the applications test it out. And once they're done with the testing, load testing, skill testing, functional testing, then they can disable that infrastructure. So non-prod use cases, right, for testing. A lot of customers are using that in there. Once you have deployed this Active Managed AD, so you have your corporate Active Directory, your enterprise directory running in your own firewall, right? And now you have established a trust to AWS Managed AD. So once this basic setup is done, less than an hour it takes. Once it is done, now this infrastructure, this service is available for you to integrate with other AWS services like Windows workloads. You have Windows applications, whether they are running on EC2, right, on Windows or Linux compute machines. It's available for you to do domain joins, seamless domain joins with AWS Managed AD. You're using RDS services that need Active Directory authentication so that the user's password, which is sitting in your enterprise AD, so they don't have to change password. They can seamlessly log in using the same password through the trust mode with AWS Managed AD and log in into RDS services or EC2 compute services. For that matter, FSX. A lot of customers are using it for a lot of these services, especially for domain joins on EC2 and RDS services. Not only that, once you have enabled it, now it's available for a whole set of AWS native services. One of them being Identity Center, natively integrates with Identity Center. And now you have your existing users with their existing credentials to be able to leverage, login into Identity Center as a single sign-on solution to other applications. But not only that, it natively integrates with workspaces, Amazon Connect. A lot of customers use as Amazon Connect and integrated with AWS Managed AD to simplify it in there. The story doesn't end there. Once you have it enabled, now you can use this to integrate it with your Azure AD Connect or Azure AD using AD Connect, Azure AD Connect, and also integrate it with Office 365 infrastructure. A lot of customers already have their ADFS set up on their on-prem AD. So you can continue to migrate it over to AWS Managed AD and still have enabled ADFS services so that those applications, those legacy applications that are relying on ADFS can still continue to work in there. All this capability is available. And it goes even further. Once you have enabled it for all the non-Windows workloads like Oracle databases, SAP, .NET applications that rely on Kerberos-based authentication or LDAP-based authentication, they are now able to leverage this AWS Managed AD. So again, right, once you have deployed it, whether you have set it up as a trust or just by itself set up AWS Managed AD, now it's available for you as from an enterprise infrastructure standpoint to integrate with any such application. Accelerate your cloud journey, make it easier for your users to leverage their existing credentials, and then get on a migration journey to migrate your on-prem AD over to AWS Managed AD. So that was on AWS Managed AD, but just to give a sneak peek on, we continue to work on Identity Center capabilities, on Managed AD services capabilities, right? From a roadmap standpoint, we continue to invest in these pillars. We continue to make these flexible, scalable, and adoptable. We want you to use these services so that you're on your cloud journey, right? Higher level on the cloud journey. We recently released Identity Store APIs for creating, updating, and managing users so that you can integrate Identity Center with your tools like IGA or scripts if you want to automate the user management in there. So that was just released. Then we also released this session duration. So a lot of customers ask that not only I want to have a fixed session duration for my Identity Center user session, but I should be able to increase it or decrease it. So we just released the capability to allow it from 15 minutes to all the way to 7 days. Some of the customers, like Jonathan was mentioning about these automation scripts, some of the customers are using these automation scripts to connect into one account, perform some operation, go into another account, perform another operation, and they have so many number of accounts that these automation scripts were taking time, so they wanted to increase the session duration. So we have given this flexibility to reduce it to have this session as low as 15 minutes to as high as 7 days. The other one is, of course, we continue to invest in the multi-region resiliency, and you will see that we are releasing many more features in this context over next year. So that was on this Identity Center, IAM Identity Center and Managed AD services. There are a lot of resources. We highly, highly encourage you to take a look. There are immersion days, there are workshops. It's all self-serviceable, and you can take a look on these resources and learn more about it. For the questions, we can stay back after the call, and then we can answer the questions in there. And last but not the least, I know we are hitting the replay time. So if you haven't grabbed the UB keys, so as a thank you note for the customers who are over here, physically here, I think the Village Center is still open. The expo is open till 4. You can grab a UB key. Again, improve your security posture with it, and let's get to the party of replay in there. Thank you so much for coming. And we can